Good morning. Welcome back to our science class. Now we are in week 13. This week we are discussing chapter 11, lesson 3, gravity and motion. So our textbook pages from 488 to 491. So what are the objectives of our lesson? To identify what determines the strength of the force of gravity between two objects, and to describe factors that keep the moon and earth in orbit. So, what determines gravity? You fall out of bed in morning. Oops. Did you forget about gravity? It would be hard to forget about gravity since its effects are everywhere. What is gravity actually? Everything with the mass experiences the force of gravity acting on it. Usually the force is strong enough to make things fall to ground. Sometimes Sometimes other forces are used to resist gravity. If you let go of a ball, it will fall to the ground, but if you pick it up, you are pulling harder than the gravitational force and you can lift it. So you may think that the gravity means only between the object and earth. No, there is a gravitational force existing between each and everything, in the universe. So between any two objects, there is a force of attraction, that is the gravitational force. I think we already discussed this lesson in Newton's laws of motion. So what is gravity? Objects in space are affected by different forces. We know that a force is a push or pull. A force called gravity attracts all objects towards each other. The great scientist Sir Isaac Newton's laws of universal gravitation state that every object in the universe attracts each other. The strength of the force of gravity between two objects depends on two factors: the mass of the object and the distance between them. So, what is mass? We know that the mass is the amount of matter in an object. Because Earth is so massive, it exerts a much greater force on you than a textbook does. So, the measure of force of gravity on an object is called weight. So, we know that mass is the amount of matter, but weight is the measure of force of gravity, force that pulls. So an object's weight can change depending on its location. Why? Because on moon you would weigh about 1/6 as much as on earth. That's because the moon has less mass than earth. So the pull of moon's gravity on you would be also be less. So mass never change whenever you go anywhere because mass is the amount of matter, but weight may change. Why? Because weight is the measure of pull of gravity. Look at these two pictures in on earth and on Mars. The mass of this person is same 50 kilogram both in earth and Mars, but the weight the on earth this boy have more weight than on Mars. Why? Because Earth's mass is too much, so its pull of gravity or gravitational force is greater than that of Mars. So you may weigh more in Earth than Mars. So we discussed that gravity depends on two things: distance and mass. So first one, gravity and distance. The force of gravity between two objects decreases, means getting low rapidly as distance between two objects increases. If the distance double, the force of gravity decreases to 1/4 of its original value. Means if the distance between two objects increase, the gravitational force decrease. Now, gravity not only depends on distance, the mass also. So, the strength of gravitational attraction between objects is affected by the mass of object and the distance between them. For example, the sun exerts a greater force of gravity on planet because sun's mass is bigger. The sun is constantly pulling the planets towards it. distance between the sun and a planet can change the force of gravity means if the object if the mass of if the object mass increase, there will be more gravitational force. But you know that when we compare to sun and earth, the sun's mass is more, means suns have more gravitational pull. But why we can feel the sun's gravitational pull means we are very far away from sun. But if we are in the middle equal center of earth and sun, of course we will pull towards the sun because sun's gravity is greater than earth's gravity. So gravity depends on an object's mass also. If the mass increase, the gravitational force also increase. Now, what keeps object in orbit? You know that orbit. What is orbit? So Earth and the Moon remains in orbit because of inertia. I think we already discussed about inertia means a type of laziness, or inertia is a tendency of an object to resist a change in motion. You feel the effect of inertia when you are riding a car and it stops suddenly. You keep moving forward until your seat belt catches you, because all the objects have a tendency to continue its own position. A moving object have a tendency to continue move. A resting object have a tendency to continue rest. That is Newton's first law of motion that we already studied before. So, the more mass an object has, greater inertia. An object with greater inertia is harder to start or to stop. That also we already studied before. So, Newton stated his idea about the inertia as a scientific law, or Newton's first law of motion say that an object at rest will stay at rest, and an object in motion will stay in motion with a constant speed and direction unless acted on by a force. Newton concluded that inertia and gravity combine to keep Earth in orbit around the sun and the moon in orbit around the Earth. So what keeps Earth and Moon its own orbit? There is gravity, of course, gravity and inertia, because this moving, when you compare to the moon doesn't want to change its position, it want to continue its own path. This inertia and force of gravity help the planets to keep its own orbit. So in summary, the force of gravity depends on the mass of object and distance between them. Objects are kept in orbit by gravity and inertia. So that's only for this lesson. I think this all content we already studied before in our first quarter lesson. So I hope you enjoy this video. Please go through a textbook again, and if you have any doubts, come in Schoology or in Zoom class, we can discuss there. Thank you so much.